I'm just going to explain something to you. So, I haven't always been a Christian, but I've been a Christian for about 25 years. If you can guess my age, then you can probably guess how long that is.
44.
Not that old.
43.
Well, less. So as I mentioned, I've been a Christian for about 25 years. And over those years, I've been asked some very interesting questions. Some of them have made me challenge my faith and actually look into the Bible and see what it says about things, and that's good. And so I'd encourage you guys, some of you guys are Christians, some of you guys aren't. That's cool. We accept everybody. But questions are good because they actually help you to identify what's truth, what's not truth, what's worth believing in, especially things like Facebook and that these days. You can get a lot of misleading information out there. So I'd encourage you guys to ask us questions, and especially as we do these talks each week, if you've got a quick question for us, we'd love to be able to share with you the answer to that question after we've had some time to look into it. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm sharing this with you tonight because of an interesting question that I get asked quite often when people ask me about being a Christian. And that question is, how can you believe in a God who allows horrible things to happen on earth and do nothing about it? Have you guys ever thought about that? God being God and Him having all the power and authority and sovereignty over all things, if He is God, why doesn't He stop all the horrible things that happen on this earth? It's a very, very good question, and it's a question that's got an answer. So why does God allow terrible things to happen on earth while He has the power to stop them? Firstly, this is not how God created the earth. So that's the way we've got to look at it. We've got to flip the way we look at it when we answer this question. Genesis 1:31, I'll give you a few Bible verses here. So it says, "Then God saw everything that He had made, and indeed it was good." God wouldn't have said that if it wasn't perfect, because God made everything perfect, pure, wholesome, and right. Everything was in balance. Then God gave everything to mankind, and He said to him, "Go ahead and enjoy it, but I'm going to give you one rule." And He said, "See that tree over there? Don't go and eat of that tree over there." That we read this in Genesis 2:15 when we move along. Then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden, and to tend to it and keep it. So He made that garden for Adam, this was. And He said, "Tend to this and keep it and enjoy it. This is my pleasure to give it to you." And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, "Of every tree of the garden you may eat freely." This fruit must have been awesome. "But that tree of knowledge of good and evil over there, you shall not eat." One rule: for the day you eat it, you shall surely die. So that was that one rule that Adam had to abide by. So what did that stage, God created Eve as well, and they were in the garden enjoying it together. As we move on, and I'm going to read you Genesis 3:6 in a second. So what did the people go and do? They had one rule not to do: chomp chomp. They chose their actions to go and eat of that tree. When we read this in Genesis 3:6, and interesting, you guys might know this as a story. I'm sure most of you guys have probably heard it, because it's not that uncommon to hear these Bible stories. But when we read this in the Bible, this is a true account of what actually happened at creation, is what we believe. And this is how we answer these questions, by looking at it in a real sense as a true account. So we read, so when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasing to the eyes, and the tree is desirable to make one wise, she took the fruit and ate. She also gave some to her husband, and he ate it as well. It was man who brought the curse into this world, and their choice. So it's man who is to blame for the terrible things that happen. It was man who brought it into the world. So God didn't say go and order them to go and eat that tree. He told them not to. They chose to go and do it. And that's what brought this curse into the world. So you ask the question, why is terrible things in the world? Why is evil in the world? The knowledge of good and bad brought that corruption into the world. Made everything out of balance. But here's where it gets interesting, because it doesn't stop there. To give you a big picture of answering this question, Romans 5:12 through to 15 says this, and I've just removed one little section out of there about the law to not make it complicated. Therefore, just as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin, and in this way death came to all people because all have sinned. So we've inherited the sin that's come on and the curses that happened on that day. Then so death reigned from the time of Adam to the time of Moses, even over those who did not sin by breaking a command, as did Adam, who is the pattern of the one to come. But listen here. But the gift is not like the trespass. For if many died for the trespass, what happened in the Garden of Eden, of the one man, how much more did God's grace, the gift that came by grace through one man, Jesus Christ, overflow to many? So God responded to what happened to this situation. It's man's sinful actions that have resulted in the world we live in today. So remember that when you hear people out there in the world go, why on earth is there a God that exists and allows terrible things to happen? Man brought that into the world, and man is the one who maintains it in the world, and man is the one to blame for it being in the world. So it was brought in by one man's selfish choices, as we have just looked at. But how did God respond to this? He sent his son Jesus to give us hope for the future and undo the curse of the world. One of the most favourite verses, of many people's favourite verses in the whole Bible, is John 3:16, and this explains this so well. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. So God responded by giving his own Son for the mistakes that mankind made. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that our world through him might be saved. He who believes in him is not condemned, but he who does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son. So there you can see that God has given us options because of his compassion on us and the way the world has ended up. He hasn't just left us here in a broken world. He's given us options. And they're options that I challenge you guys to consider. But you ask, why on earth is the world still this way when Jesus came? Why hasn't God... Jesus came to fix it. Why didn't he fix it? Let's read on a little bit more in this verse in John. It continues on and says, and this is the condemnation, that the light has come into the world, and men love the darkness. Men love this state of the world, because their deeds were evil. It's man who continues to maintain the world in the state it's in. For everyone practicing evil hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his deeds be exposed. But he who does the truth comes to the light, that the deeds may be clearly seen, that what they have been done. So there we go. We have the choice. We can maintain to be a part of this world, or we can come to the light through Jesus Christ. Despite all God has done, man still chooses to reject him, resulting in the world we live in today. So I hope that answers that question for you. And that bright side is that we have this hope in Jesus. And if any of you guys have got, if that pricks any more questions to you, as I mentioned in the beginning, please bring those questions to any of the leaders here today. Should be capable of answering questions or finding out answers for you, and even give us more topics to talk about on youth group nights like this. And if you want to know more about Jesus, we would love to talk to you guys as well. So I hope that makes sense to you guys.